Okay, all right. We are going to go ahead and get started on the program. I want to say good morning, everyone. I want to welcome everyone, or excuse me, good afternoon, maybe good morning to some of you. I know our friend Justice Page is just before noon there, 11:30, and I think our friends from California have called in over the phone, if I'm not mistaken. I think I recognize the California area code there, so it's an earlier morning there. I want to welcome everyone to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jerry Shockey. I'm the manager of youth and education here at the museum, and we're extremely excited to connect with you guys today. Uh, really today, and we have a lot of new schools that are involved in this program here today. Really today, the idea and premise behind this Heart of the Hall of Famer series is really to convey what it took to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic abilities. And we always say this, that our Hall of Famers are awesome examples of athleticism and skill and talent and all those sorts of things. But, something we're going to share here today, it took a lot more than that. It took the character qualities. It took things like commitment and courage and dedication and ability to persevere, and the 6 pillars that you guys are studying, the trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. It took all those and a whole lot more. And as I always say, I have a secret for you guys, and I don't think it's really that big of a secret, that these aren't character qualities that go to being a great football player. These are character qualities to being a Hall of Famer in everyday life. So I know we've got a lot of schools, so I'm going to keep things brief and let Mr. Page get to his opening remarks so we can go to questions that you guys might have and flow off those questions. But there are folks that I do need to recognize that help make this program possible here today. And first and foremost, we have to thank our good friends, the partners there at Extreme Networks, Gene Mickelson, Mike Claypool, that are both there at Centennial High School, making sure everything's going there, on being our eyes and ears on that end. Thank you, Gene and Mike, for being there. And then our friends at Centennial School District. I know the superintendent there, Brian Dietz, thank you for opening the doors to your district to us. Richard Williams, Krista Berger with their PR, and then the folks at the high school, at Centennial High School, Elizabeth Beaton and Thomas Bruning, the principal. Thank you very much for the arrangements that you made to make this possible on your end. We've been testing the past month or so to make this happen. So, and somebody does have their microphone open. If you can make sure to please mute, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, I think we got everyone there. We need to thank the teachers, because obviously you made the arrangements on your school's ends to make sure that this happens. And then last but definitely not least, we need to thank the students in the schools. And I'd like to recognize those schools and at least announce who is tuned in, just for sake of time. We're going to just announce them all, and then everybody can kind of give a quick cheer real quick, and then we'll move on from there. So we have in Centennial High School at Centennial, in Centennial, Minnesota, that Mr. Page, Justice Page, is kind of surrounded by right now. We have Four Peaks Elementary in Apache Junction, Arizona. We have Carson Elementary in Pensacola, New Jersey. We have Brownsville High School in Brownsville, PA. We have Cazenovia High School in Cazenovia, Pennsylvania. We have Wheeling. Oh, we'll say thank you, Cazenovia. We've got Wheeling Central Catholic in Wheeling, West Virginia. We've got Lindbergh Elementary in Little Falls, Minnesota. We have Centennial Middle School in Centennial, Minnesota, who's going to be a view-only school. And then we have 3 other view-only schools here today: Audubon Elementary in Audubon, Pennsylvania, Thomas Stone High School in Waldorf, Maryland, and Kings Lake Educational Center in Corcoran, California. So thank you to all of you for tuning in here today and making the arrangements. So what we're going to do is, let me go to the introduction of our featured speaker, and that's Pro Football Hall of Famer. And what you'll find out today is, I think, in his estimate, and probably in anyone else's estimate, that the moniker that is more important to him is Justice Page, as opposed to Pro Football Hall of Famer Page. He was a consensus All-America at Notre Dame in 1966. He was a Minnesota Vikings second pick in the first round of the first ever combined AFL-NFL draft. The AFL rivaled against the NFL, eventually became known as what we know as the AFC and NFC. Although he played defensive end in college, he was moved to defensive tackle with the Vikings. Justice Page won the starting defensive right tackle job in the 4th game of his rookie season and remained a starter for the rest of his career. Justice Page excelled with the Vikings for 11 seasons and 6 games in the 1978 championship when he was waived. The Chicago Bears quickly signed him, and he moved into the starting lineup without missing a game. Justice Page wound up his career in 1981 after playing 238 games, all but 3 of them as a starter, included. Now get this is how good those purple people eaters, you might have heard that name if you guys are doing some research on that. That's how good they were. Included were 16 NFL and NFC playoff games, Super Bowls 4, 7, 9, and 11. So that's how good those Minnesota Vikings were. During Page's tenure, the Vikings won 4 of the 5 NFL NFC title games in which they played. Page, who in 1971 was named the National Football League's Most Valuable Player award that's usually never given to a defensive player, but at that time it was the only second time in league history that that's happened. He was named the league's Defensive Player of the Year in 1971 and 1973. Justice Page earned All-Pro honors 6 times and was named second team All-League 3 additional times. Voted to 9 straight Pro Bowls, Page was named All-Conference team 10 times. Intelligent, hardworking, with amazing speed and quickness, Page accumulated some imposing career statistics. Now, mind you, a lot of these statistics weren't recorded, especially the sack wasn't recorded until after 1983 season. He recovered 23 opponents' fumbles. An unofficial show that he has blocked 28 kicks and recorded 173 sacks. So again, those statistics weren't recorded at that time, but those are unofficially the stats. Rather than wait for the ball carry, he sought out a defensive player should think of himself more as an aggressor and not as a defender, he explained. Now, that's a little bit about his on the field, but, really what we want to highlight today here as well is his off the field. And one of the things that I think Justice Page will talk to you on is, one of his proudest accomplishments is being obviously elected to the highest spots as you can as a state judge and the Minnesota Supreme Court justice. And he was elected to the court in 1992. And as many people know, that it's one thing to get elected, but it's even more difficult to continue getting reelected. He was done so in 98, 2004, 2010. Previously, he served as an assistant attorney general and a special assistant attorney general and was an associate with the Minnesota law firm Lindquist and Venham. Justice Page, who attended law school at the University of Minnesota during, not before or after, during his NFL career, they weren't paid the millions of dollars you guys are used to today, is an ardent defender of equal education for children. He is the founder of the Page Education Foundation, which assists minority youth with post-secondary education. And might I add that that's put thousands of kids into school because of Justice Page's hard work. So when we talk about the pillar of citizenship and caring and those sorts of things, Justice Page is someone that exemplifies those things. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is share a quick video of Justice Page.
Playing in over 230 straight games for the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears, Alan Page was a member of the Vikings' famed Purple People Eater defense. Using his quickness and agility, Page dominated many facets of the game, including blocking kicks, recovering fumbles, and most importantly, making big tackles. These skills helped Minnesota reach the Super Bowl 4 times. The Canton, Ohio native was the 1971 NFL Most Valuable Player, a 4-time NFC Defensive Player of the Year, and an All-Pro selection 9 straight seasons.
Okay, I know this will be dangerous with this many schools, but if you can all unmute your microphones for a second and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Alan Page.
Thank you for that fantastic introduction, Jerry. Hopefully I can live up to it here today. It's good to be with you all, especially here at Centennial High School. And what I thought I would do was just talk for a minute about, I'm a Supreme Court Justice. I'm a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But how does that happen? Well, in some respects, you have to be lucky. In some respects, you have to work hard. In all respects, you have to work hard. But more important than anything is you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared both physically, mentally, emotionally, and you have to be willing to work hard, And you have to be able to you have to be willing to prepare yourself to put yourself in position to be successful. And quite frankly, whether we're talking about professional football, whether we're talking about the law, whether we're talking about being a student, the qualities that allow for success apply across the board. And you students, all of you across the country, the work that you're doing today in the classroom is work that will prepare you for the future, so that when opportunities arise, you'll be able to take advantage of them. Quite frankly, there really isn't any opportunity when you're not prepared to take advantage of it. You know, if you're not in the position to say you want to be a doctor, well, if you don't go to medical school, you're never going to be in the position to take advantage of becoming a doctor. The opportunity will never present itself. You want to be an electronics technician or a computer software programmer. If you don't prepare yourselves, all the talent, all the good luck in the world, you won't be successful because you're not prepared. And in that context, a key part of preparation is character. And what I thought I would like to do is share with you some thoughts, some prepared remarks that I have taken from a number of speeches that I've given that relate to character. And these remarks, as I've prepared them, or as I use them in a broader context in other speeches, I think give a lot of insight into what we're really talking about when we're talking about character. And I would begin by just noting that in this day and age, when we look at the world around us, there is a tendency to think that things are a little off kilter, a little topsy-turvy. We see rampant greed amongst various people, athletes who off the field engage in ever more destructive antisocial behavior, and on the field seem more interested in taunting or showing up their opponent than in playing the game. And politicians who say one thing and then do something entirely different. In my view, all of this reflects and is symptomatic of a real decline in both our individual and in our national character. The American Heritage Dictionary defines character as moral or ethical strength, integrity, fortitude. In a sense, character is who we are at our very core. It's what determines what we believe and how we choose to respond to any given situation. Now, character is not something that we're born with, nor does it develop automatically. It must be consciously developed. Nor is it something that is static, whether we're 50 or 15, 5 or 75, whether we're a student, a teacher, a member of the support staff, or an administrator of Centennial High School or any of the other schools that we're visiting with today, or for that matter, a Hall of Fame football player or a Supreme Court justice. We will be forced to reevaluate and renew our character again and again. The people of character take responsibility for who they are and what they do. To resist the pressures and temptations that seduce us to make the easy choices rather than the right choices. To be a person of character takes a strong person. Now, I don't mean strong in the sense of physical stature, because physical stature really has nothing to do with character. I do mean strong in the sense of believing that each one of us has an obligation to act in ways that builds rather than diminishes our character and the character of those around us. What does that really mean? It means being honest and trustworthy, saying what we mean and meaning what we say. It means keeping our promises. It means playing fairly, telling the truth, making decisions with others in mind, always treating people with respect, and respecting ourselves. It means working to figure out the difference between right and wrong, and then acting accordingly. The fact that I was once considered to be a great football player, or that I'm a Minnesota Supreme Court justice, doesn't by itself mean that I am a man of good character. The fact that the color of my skin is different from yours doesn't mean that I'm not a man of good character. The fact that your language or gender or religion may be different from mine doesn't make either one of our characters better or worse. The outward differences which identify us as individuals do not define the content of our character. But each of us and all of us have the ability to define our character, our personal character, and our character as a nation, not someone else, you and me. By nature, we tend to want to look outward to see where the problem lies. However, if we are to change and improve our character, each of us individually must change. Ultimately, we all live in a society, and how our society progresses is determined by how we act, by what we say, but also, and most importantly, by how we act. And to act as a person of character is critical if our futures, your future, is to be as bright as it can be, if it is to be as successful as it can be. I think I will turn things back over to Jerry.
All right, thank you, Justice Page. And just a quick overview for students. We're going to go in the order of, we're going to start with the students from Centennial High School, so get your student ready if they're going to come up next to Justice Page or whatever you guys have arranged there. So go ahead and get ready for that in just a second. We're going to go Centennial, Four Peaks, Carson, Brownsville, Cazenovia, Wheeling Central. Wheeling, can you raise your hands? Because I'm not sure if you guys are, okay, I think that's who. I've got you muted right now, just so you know, but when we go to you, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you can't, I can unmute you. But glad that you guys connected in. And Lindbergh. We'll go in those order. So Centennial, Four Peaks, Carson, Brownsville, Cazenovia, Wheeling, and Lindbergh. We'll go in that order. Please, couple things quickly. Is that number one, is that even after you ask your question, if you can make sure to mute immediately following, that way we can eliminate any background noise as Mr. Page is responding to the question. And secondly, for those of you that, especially at Centennial, if I'm the last person on the screen, you see me up on the big screen, you see me mess around with my phone down here, I'm not playing, Plants vs. Zombies or something while this program's going on. I stay in communication with all the schools via text. So this is my backdoor communication, so I'm not interrupting the program. So don't think I'm playing some app. So with that being said, I see we got a student ready for you. So let's start the program off with Darrow at Centennial High School.
Okay. How do you measure success? And if you had to give us one piece of advice to be successful in our futures, what would it be?
How do I measure success? That's a question I get asked a lot. And ultimately, I see success as the journey, not the destination. And it's how you travel along the road to the destination that's really important. In terms of advice, boy, one piece of advice, I don't know that there is one central piece, but certainly an important piece is being honest. So that, and being trustworthy, so that those around you can rely on you, to perform in whatever it is you're working on. Another piece is to work collaboratively. None of us have all the answers. As smart as we might like to think we are, none of us has all the answers. We get the answers by working together. And the third thing I would say is seek excellence. And when I talk about seeking excellence, I don't mean simply putting yourself trying to win. I mean, perform the task, whatever it is, as well as you can perform it. Not as well as those around you. You know, don't play and perform to the level of the competition. I think one of the things that we tend to do is we see the competition and we think if we can be better than they are, then that's good enough. And it may or may not be, but playing to the level of the competition will never allow you to reach your fullest potential. And ultimately, because in my view, success is in the journey, and it's in finding out where that full potential is. If you don't, I mean, if you try to perform to the level of the competition, you can never get there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to go to, and I muted them just for a second, but Four Peaks, go ahead and unmute. It looks like you did. Four Peaks, if you have a question, just make sure to mute your microphone immediately after. So go ahead, Four Peaks in Apache Junction, Arizona.
Was there ever a time you wanted to give up, but you choose to persevere?
Oh, there are lots of times when I've wanted to give up, both on the athletic field and in pursuing the law. I mean, things are hard, and there are times when they just seem to be overwhelming. And it's easy to want to sort of throw in the towel and say, well, that didn't work out so well, so let's just move on. But I've learned over time that anything worth doing is going to be challenging. It is going to be hard. And if it's easy, it's probably, I've gotten to the point in life where if it's necessarily easy, there's no challenge in it, and it's not very much fun. The example I would use is on a football field when it's the middle of August and it's 95 degrees and it's humid and you're hot and you're tired and you're at the end of a 16-play drive and the other team is on the 2-yard line and it's third down and it's like, can this be over yet? I mean I'm exhausted. But if you're going to be successful, part of that journey means that you have to figure out how to deal with those adverse circumstances and how to work your way through it. The other example, an easy example for me to give you in my life is Jerry noted that I am a law school graduate from the University of Minnesota Law School. I'm also a law school dropout. I graduated from law school from the University of Minnesota in 1975 or in 1978. In 1967, I enrolled at a law school in St. Paul, Minnesota, William Mitchell College of Law. At the beginning of the 1968 football season. It was my second year in the league. I was focused more on playing football than I was practicing law or learning the law. And the first day of class, I think we had 500 pages of reading that we had to have done, and I did it, and I didn't understand any of it. And I get to the class, and the professor starts asking questions about those 500 pages, and I'm like lost. I thought, I have no idea what's going on. No idea what I'm doing in this classroom. I mean, I was so far gone that I figured out pretty quickly that I wasn't going to survive and that I was going to end up dropping out. But I was so far gone, I was there for 2 weeks before I could figure out how to drop out. That's how in over my head I was. What I didn't know, and I didn't understand because it was a new situation for me, was that everybody in the class was in the same boat that I was. They didn't have any more idea what was going on than I did. But I thought it was me that was the problem. And it was just the way they go about teaching you how to learn the law. The second time around, I figured that out and figured out how to persevere through those difficult times. And the real challenge is, I guess, when we feel like giving up, the real challenge is sticking with it long enough and working hard enough to figure out how to work through the problem. And as I say, it's not always easy, but it's, for the most part, doable. Good question.
Okay. Yeah, great question there in Arizona. We're going to go from Arizona to New Jersey. Carson Elementary, go ahead.
Wait, Mr. Judge Page, when you were younger, did you follow the rules to be a person of character?
When I was younger, did I?
Follow the rules to be a person of character.
Did I always think about it?
Did you always follow the rules?
Did I always follow the rules? Well, has the statute of limitations run? And that means, can I get in trouble for any admissions about things that I did when I was young? I'm not any different than most people, and particularly young people. I broke the rules on occasion. I tried to follow them most of the time. It didn't take me long to figure out when I broke the rules that there was a price to be paid for that, and that it was, it made more sense, at least to me, to do everything that I could to follow the rules as opposed to breaking them. It's interesting, about, I don't know, 6 months ago, I was speaking to a group of young men at a juvenile detention center here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And one of the young men asked me if essentially the same question about whether I had always followed the rules and how I managed to end up not being in the situation that he was in. And I told him, I said, for me, it was easier to follow the rules than to get in trouble. I mean, I broke the rules on occasion, but the cost of admission to breaking the rules was too high. And so I found it easier and more rewarding to follow the rules. And in doing that, I should note that both as a football player and as a lawyer, I haven't always liked the rules. But it's a bit like, if you're going to be a football player, You have to play with a football. You can't use a basketball. One of the rules of football is that you use a football. You can't use a basketball. And so if you want to be a football player, you have to follow the rules of football. Well, the same is true in almost anything and in life. If you want to be a good citizen, if you want to enjoy the fruits that society has to offer, you have to play by society's rules. And when you don't like those rules, you can work to change them. There's nothing wrong with that. I spent a lot of time over the years working to change the rules so that they were fair, they made more sense, whatever it may have been. But simply breaking them is counterproductive, and it doesn't allow you to get to where you want to go. So I would encourage all of you to question the rules. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's a healthy thing. But when you are confronted with rules and situations you don't like, work to change it. Don't simply not follow or violate the rules.
All right, thank you very much. I did get a text. I'm going to jump order here for just a second, and because they need to get out now early. Wheeling Central Catholic, Wheeling, West Virginia. If you guys want to go ahead with a question before your students get dismissed there, I know you guys have to leave early. You want to go ahead and unmute? Actually, I'll just go ahead and unmute you guys just to save time. Your
Thanks, Jerry.
Yep, sure.
Okay, thanks. So come on up. Come on. Great. And there you are, Wes. Go ahead.
All right. Judge Page,
Yes.
out of the 6 pillars of character, trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, which do you believe are most important and why?
Well, they're all important, but I think central to all of them is trustworthiness. Because if you can't be trusted, the rest of it won't matter. If you can't be trusted, how do we know that you're going to be responsible? How do we know that you're going to be reliable? How can we be sure that you'll be honest? I think sort of tying them all together is the notion of being trustworthy. Because it's the problem that you run into once someone has lied to you. How can you ever rely on them again? It's just a difficult problem. Somebody can fall down in the reliability category, but that may just be an accident of any number of things unrelated to their working at being reliable. But at the core of human relationships is being able to trust one another.
All right, thank you very much, Wheeling, West Virginia. So from one Central Catholic graduate to another, I guess, right there. Wheeling Central Catholic to Kent Central Catholic. Let's go to Brownsville High School, Brownsville, PA.
Did your family support your career dreams?
Did my family support my career dreams? They certainly did. And not only did my family support my career dreams, a lot of other people did also. We talk about our hopes and dreams for the future, and whatever they may be, all of us need the support of those around us to achieve them. As I noted earlier, none of us are so smart, so multi-talented, so hardworking and all that, that we don't rely on the support of others. And I was lucky. My parents, I can still remember from when I was, in middle school, even in elementary school, my parents telling me that I could achieve whatever my hopes and dreams were if I was willing to work hard and if I was willing to, as I mentioned earlier, try to be the best that I could be at whatever it was I wanted to be. They would tell me, if you want to be a doctor when you grow up, work to be the best doctor you can be. If you want to be a garbage collector when you grow up, work to be the best garbage collector you can be. And that support, that notion that they would support me in being pursuing a career as a doctor or pursuing a career as a garbage worker. Whatever it might be, their support was there. And that's, for a young person, having that kind of support and the love that came along with it, I think is pretty important.
All right, I think Casanova is going to be checking out of here in just a minute too. Casanova, if you're there, I can unmute you. I know when you can't get your video right now, or you go ahead, you unmuted. If you got a question, go ahead.
Hi, our question is, Alan, who would you consider your biggest role model?
Who would I consider my biggest role model? My parents. We talk about athletes, we talk about entertainers as role models. The reality is that we are influenced by those we can reach out and touch. Most of us don't have the ability on a regular basis to reach out and touch an athlete or an entertainer or a politician for that matter. But we do have the ability to reach out and touch our parents and our family members. And quite frankly, another group of role models is your fellow students. Each of you are the model for everybody else, for all of you, and for those around you. Each of you, in your daily interactions with your classmates, influence how your classmates act, how they respond in a given situation. We always think that role model is somebody big and important, if you will. But the reality is that we're most influenced by those right next to us.
Great, thank you, Casanova. We appreciate the question and appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to go back to Minnesota, Little Falls, Lindbergh Elementary.
What made you think of being a judge?
What made me think of being a judge? Well, it begins with my interest in the law, which started long before I started playing football. When I was in the 4th grade, people would ask me what I wanted to do when I grow up, and I would say I wanted to be a lawyer. At the time, I didn't have a clue about what lawyers did, how you became a lawyer. But I'd been watching that back then. There was a television show by the name of Perry Mason. Probably watched too much television. But also I was influenced by, I can remember in 1954 when the United States Supreme Court decided a very important case called Brown versus the Board of Education, which struck down essentially racial segregation in our school systems across this country. I can remember reading about that and thinking that the court's decision was really about fairness and ensuring fairness. And the law, one of the things we strive for is equal justice under the law. And that decision stuck with me over the years. When I graduated from law school and started practicing, it didn't occur to me that I might one day be a judge. But then as I was working, struggling, trying to read court cases, trying to figure out what the courts were talking about, it was as though they were written in a not quite foreign language, but in this archaic language that I thought, I bet I could do that. I'd like to do that. What particularly appellate court judges do sort of fits my strengths, my interests, my skills, and so I started thinking about it, and fortunately, I was elected to serve on the Minnesota Supreme Court and have had the privilege for the last almost 22 years to serve the people of this state. And I have to tell you, as much fun as I had as a professional football player, as great a time as I had as being recognized as a football player, there is nothing like the challenge of working through difficult and complex legal problems, sorting them out, coming to some conclusion, and then being able to put on the written page my views of how I think this case should be resolved. For me, there is simply nothing like that. And I've just, as I say, I've been privileged to serve in this role.
All right, thank you, Lindbergh. We're going to stay there with the students there with the Justice page of Centennial High School if you want to get a student up there, and or just shout it out from where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Justice Page, when you wake up in the morning, what is your mindset and how has it helped you become successful in all aspects of life?
When I get up in the morning, I sort of face the day with the idea that what can I do today that will improve on what I'm working on, or what will make the circumstances around me better, not only for myself but for those around me. And whether it's thinking about a particular task or generally, my focus is on how do I get through today's challenges in a way that makes me better at the end of the day, that makes everything that I've been involved with better at the end of the day. My days usually start at 5:19 every morning. You say, why 5:19? Because that's when the time that somebody set the alarm clock. And so it goes off every morning at 5:19. And don't ask me why they didn't set it at 5:18 or 5:20. I get up, my wife and I go out for what used to be a relatively long run. And as we've gotten older, it's morphing into sort of a short walk. But we get up and get out every day, get some exercise, so that, there's something about exercise that clears your head, at least it does for us. And it gives us a chance to talk about our day, what our plans are and what we're going to be doing. And we usually get together with one or two friends on the walk or the run. And then it's getting ready to come to the office and sort of looking forward to the day's challenges, trying to get through them. Speaking of challenges, somebody earlier, one of the questions had to do with, you ever think about you want to give up? Been working on an opinion that for too long, I'll put it to you that way, that I just can't get written. And I'd like to give up on that, but we don't have that luxury. So one of the things the challenges I've been working on and thinking about as I wake up every morning lately is how can I get this opinion into circulation to the other justices so we can get our decision made. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Centennial. Let's go back to Four Peaks.
When you are faced with a tough decision, what guides you to make the right choice?
Great question.
Faced with a tough decision, what guides me to make the right choice? Usually it involves analyzing what the choices are and then figuring out what the best one for the given situation is. And some of it is intuitive. When the choice is between, I'm just trying to think of an example. Walking out of the store, having been given too much change, and deciding to, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go back and talk to the clerk and say, you gave me too much change. That one's easy. And it's just intuitive. Somebody made a mistake. I can correct it. They gave me more money than I'm entitled to. I'm going to give it back to them. Then the question becomes, well, you don't realize you've gotten too much change until you get home. Do you then? What do you do then? Do you go back to the store? Do you say, well, if I was in the store, I'd give it back. But, I'm home now and it's 5 miles away and it's only $2, so what's the big deal? Well, that would gnaw at me and sort of drive me crazy until I ended up going back to the store and resolving that problem. As I say, some things are intuitive. Some things the answer isn't so simple. Sometimes there are, 5 choices, none of which are wrong, some of which are better than others. And then it's a matter of sort of analyzing, thinking through the problem and working to try to come up with what is the best answer. Not necessarily the easiest answer, but the best answer. And then again, maybe there are 6 answers and 3 of them are clearly wrong. 4 of them are clearly wrong. 5 of them are clearly wrong. But you could take either one of those 5 and nobody would know. Then you have the internal debate with yourself about, well, if I do A, may not be right, but the risk is low, I won't get caught. If I do B, it's wrong. The risk is getting caught is a little higher, but on the spectrum you get over to E, and E is, this is the right thing to do. And sometimes you have to have that, we have that internal debate with ourselves. Hopefully we always end up over on E, this is the right thing to do, not because you might get caught in doing the wrong thing, but because it's the right thing to do. because it's the right thing to do. And as I said in those prepared remarks that I gave you, figuring out the difference between right and wrong and then acting accordingly is what's important. And it isn't always easy, and sometimes it isn't always pleasant when you get to the end of the line, because sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And we have to have the sort of the courage, because it takes courage sometimes to do the right thing. We have to have the will, and ultimately it helps to have the support of others in doing the right thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Four Peaks, another great question from you guys. Let's go to New Jersey, Carson Elementary. Go ahead.
Judge Page, at what age do you start living by the rules of character?
At what age do you start living by the rules of character? You really begin to start living by the rules of character the day you're born. And every day for the rest of your life, we apply those rules. Now, early on, maybe we don't even understand that there are rules to character, but hopefully those around us are teaching them to us. And then once we become conscious enough to understand what the rules are, we apply them on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. And at times it's minute to minute. As I say, character is something that has to be consciously developed. And to do that, I mean, it's something that is always with us. And there's no age too young, or quite frankly, no age too old. They say it's not static. We're either growing and becoming, our character is improving, or it's going the other direction. It's not sitting level at any one place. And the challenge is to make sure that we're constantly working to make sure that we're working to improve our character and not diminish it.
All right, thank you, Pensacola. I think we got about 5 minutes left, so maybe we can go to 2 more questions and closing remarks from Justice Page. Let's go to Brownsville, Pennsylvania. And Brownsville? No? Okay. Let's go to Lindbergh Elementary. Lindbergh, Minnesota. Little Falls, Minnesota.
Yep. When did you decide to be a Supreme Court judge?
When did I decide?
Yeah.
It was the first I thought about it, the first time I took action to become one was in 1990. And I tried to be elected, but for a whole host of reasons, which are too complicated to go into now, I wasn't able to. But in 1992, I tried again, and I was successful. And I guess one of the things, the thoughts that your question triggers in me is that not everybody is successful at everything they try the first time they try it. As young people, don't be discouraged by the fact that you didn't get to the destination the first time you sort of went down the road. Sometimes we have to go down the road more times than once. We can we shouldn't be discouraged by the lack of, quote, success. In fact, I'm just thinking here, in terms of football, winning and losing, if you got discouraged every time you lost, or you'd never go back and play the next game, because there's always that potential. One of the things that I've learned, though, that's really important for all of us, particularly for young people, is that in losing, in not being successful, there is a lot to be learned. Looking back on my life, I've learned far more from the losses and the failures than I ever did from the victories. When you win, you tend to think, boy, wasn't I great? Didn't I perform well? When you lose, you have to sit down and analyze and think to yourself and work through, what did I do wrong? And what do I do the next time? How do I change what I did so that I increase my chances of being successful? And so I would encourage all of you to keep in mind that some days you're on the losing end of things, but you're going to learn more and grow more and develop more from that than you ever will from being on the winning end of things. And don't get me wrong, I am one of the worst losers ever to come down the pike. I've never been a very good loser. But the fact is that when it comes to growing and developing as a person, I've grown far more and developed far more from the losses than ever from the wins.
And Justice Page, just to close out the program, is there anything today that you would like to either reiterate or that you would like to touch on that maybe we haven't discussed on to close out the program?
Well, I think we've had some really good questions. We've touched on a lot of important points. But I think one thing that I would like to mention is that each of the students here, you young people are the future. You're going to be tomorrow's leaders. You're going to be tomorrow's Supreme Court justices. You're going to be tomorrow's teachers. You're going to be tomorrow's political leaders, community leaders, business people. And what you're doing now in school, preparing for the future, both in terms of the academic side, the social side, the preparing yourselves in terms of character, all of those things are within your control. And the work that you do now is going to be what puts you into position to achieve whatever your hopes and dreams may be. And so I would encourage you now and every day in the future to work to build your character, work to prepare yourselves to go on in school, to prepare for that career, to prepare yourselves to face a world that has lots of problems, and work on solving those problems, working on understanding other people. And when you do that, you can achieve whatever it is your hopes and dreams may be. And in the process, you will make your lives better. You will make the lives of those around you better, and you will make our nation and this world a better place. And ultimately, finally, I would just point out that I've said a couple of times today that no one of us can do it all alone. There are those who are less fortunate than we are. And we have an obligation, I think. Those of us who have the ability, those of us who are in the position, we have an obligation to work to make the lives of those less fortunate than we are better. We all have that power. We all have that ability. And all we really have to do is act. And whether we're talking about making our lives better, making the lives of those around us better, whether we're talking about preparing for the future, whether we're talking about building our character, it is our actions. It is our actions that will define who we are. Thank you. It's been fun this morning, and thank you all for allowing me to share my thoughts with you.
And students, if you can all unmute your microphones for a second and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Ryan Page.